Hey everybody, Dane here, and I am expanding on the video from part one, how to build an app for your portfolio. So this is kind of this is how I like to think about this, and this is really going to help you. So first you pick the language and framework. We talked about that. So Lang framework. Then you basically pick the app idea. Okay, if you're an iOS or Android developer, it's going to be on iOS. If you're a web developer, it'll be on web, etc. And you're going to use the framework that you decided on in the idea, right? Pardon my horrible handwriting, it's just the way it is. Now, 3, as I mentioned in the last video, is how to build it. How do you do this if you don't have any experience, if you do not know what to do? Okay, well, first of all, number 1 is, like, you have to realize, like, don't doubt. Like, you can't doubt that you're going to actually do this. If you doubt the fact that you can do this, we might as well stop right now and just not even do this. So let me outline exactly how I would do this from your perspective as a beginner and the best way to approach it. So what we're going to do is we're going to outline the app. So let's actually put that on our little list. B, we're going to, and sorry, I used the wrong terminology. We're going to draw app with lo-fi drawing. So we're going to use a lo-fi drawing, which basically means like very basic, very bare bones skeleton. We're going to draw the skeleton for the app. So let's say that we selected the library app. So this is going to be for the library rental app. And I'll do a different app as well. Okay, so we'll do a few different resources. So the first thing we know is that, and by the way, there's no technical knowledge that you need to do this. When I'm drawing this, I'm thinking, what do I know from other apps, what, et cetera, right? So here's the first step is, well, we need a screen. I know we need a screen, and I'm a web developer, so we're going to do this on the web. So we probably need like a login right here. So like login button here. Let's actually remove that. Let's do a little tiny button. Your drawing might look prettier than mine. We're going to have a little home, about, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we'll have like a nav bar. So this will be nav. Okay. Now we know that we want to have a login. So we got the login right here. We want some kind of login or register. For now, we don't need to worry about anything except high level. This is super high level, right? So next, what we're going to do is we are going to, let me just double check that the microphone's on. Yep, it is. So next is we need a list of books. So we're going to put a little list together, a view. There's going to be like a little section. There's going to be a section, and there needs to be like a list of books, right? Doot, doot, doot. And then I need the book cover. So I'm going to have a book cover for every book. Something like this. Now, obviously, you probably would put the book covers on the left. This is just an example, right? So here, let's do this. Let's call this books. So right away, you know that there's a list. Whoops. Let's go back. Let's do that. You know that there's a list of books. Okay, because you visualized on your little application here, there needs to be a list. Now, what about the right side of the page? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you actually don't even know. You just leave it empty for now. Or maybe you want to have here, you want to have a panel where it's all the rented books. So it's everything they've currently rented and everything they've returned, like everything they've rented in the past. So this would be rented books. And then this would be returned. Just an example, right, guys? Okay, now what do you do? So this is like what I would, this is what I would start with. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making it overly simplistic. This is what I would start with. Now, what I would do next is I would understand, this is something that you actually need to be taught, is that as you go through this application, you can build this up from tutorials that you learn, okay? So let's actually use black. Let's just keep using black. So first is we're going to take this. Let's go ahead and build this piece right here, the middle piece. Okay, let's go ahead and teach you how to build this. Well, so how are we going to do this? We don't know anything about coding. We don't know how to do this. Well, it's not that complicated. right? Let's say you picked Python and Django. So let's say example, Python, Django, okay? DJ. So right here, we know that there's a list of blank. It could be anything. Could be books, could be movies, it could be cars, it could be anything. So we know that we need to learn how to make a list of something. Well, where can we do that? So this is where we go, oh shit, you know what? They have tutorials where there's lists of blog posts. This handwriting looks like I'm a kindergartner, but there's literally tutorials you can learn where it's lists of blog posts in Python Django. So I can use Python Django tutorials that teach me how to build a list of blog posts, and that list can actually teach me how to build the list right here. The list of, and I'll just replace this, or whoops, let's do this. The list of books. So this blog post list will teach me that. So when you go to research, you'll actually read this tutorial about how to make the list, and I want you to do exactly what they say. So you go about typing out the blog post, how to build a list of blog posts, except you want to use the terminology books, right? So they'll teach you, how do I set up the database for a blog post? How do I set up the view for a blog post? So it'll say new database table blog posts, and you type new database table books, and then it'll say new view blog posts index, and you type new view books index, and then they'll say click here to see the blog post detail view, and then you type click here to see the book. Like, do you see what I'm saying, guys? You replace everything where they say blog posts, you replace that with books. So you want to replace, like, this is like the really cool thing about programming is in programming this is like how you want to look at it. This is kind of maybe a weird way to look at it, but this is the truth. Like in programming, there's these tutorials, right? Imagine these are tutorials. So here's another one, and then here's another one, and this is tutorial code. This is all code in a tutorial of how to build something. Well, guess what? There's entities. Every application has entities. This is an entity. This is a user entity. This is an interpolate. This is like a view of an entity. This is a view of an entity. Books. A web application or an iOS application starts with the entities, the book, the user, blah, 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 right? Now, I'll teach a lesson on this maybe another time, but this tutorial, let's say this is an events, how to build an event management app with Elixir Phoenix. Let's say that's what this is, this tutorial here. So it'll have like this. It'll say, let me click this. It'll say event, blah, blah, blah. It'll say event here. And then you keep reading, the tutorial will go down longer. It'll be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then here it'll be like .new XYZ, except it'll say event.new. So what you want to do when you're reading these tutorials is you want to pull out these objects that they're using and you want to hot swap them. Replace these objects with your app objects. It's that simple. So like if you want to build a show view, like let's say I want to click on a book, okay, and I want to actually build a view. So like this. I want to click on a book, and then when I click on the book, I want to see the detail view. So I want to see the book logo up top. I want to see the big-ass title of the book. And then I want to see a list of everybody in the past who's rented it. Doop, doop, doop. And then I want to see, the status. Doop, doop. Like a big status thing right here. Is it rented? Is it available? Blah, blah, blah. More info, the author. And then here I want to see a big description of the book. Big paragraph description, right? So this is it. This is the way the app breaks down. Like this is able to be built and replicated from tutorials. So you go in and you look at this tutorial here. You go, okay, I need to make a detail view. So find tutorial. This is the algorithm. Find tutorial. of blog posts. Again, let's assume we're using Django and Python. In Python, Django, so let's use Django. And find part that builds show view. Every tutorial that shows you how to build a blog will actually tell you how to build the page where you click on the blog post and read the blog post. They call this a show view. They call this a detail view. There's a bunch of different names for this. So you might hear the word detail view, you might hear the word show view, etc. Again, apologize for the shitty writing. So you're going to find the tutorial of blog posts in Django and find the part that builds the show view. And literally, you're going to copy it. So it'll tell you, here's how to put the title in the view. It'll tell you, here's where to put the post body. This right here, this is the post body. This is the title of the blog post. Do you see that? This is the title of the book. Again, title of blog post is what the tutorial says. And you replace that with boop, book. You replace it. So here is the title of the blog post. You're going to put the book there. Here's this right here. This is going to be where the description of the body of the post, the actual post is. This is where your little description of the book is going to go. Here's where the little title is going to go. Okay. The author of the book's right here. This is where the author of the blog post is going to, like where they teach you, oh, this is how you input the author of the blog post. You go, oh shit, okay, it's actually teaching me how to input the author of the book. Okay. And then all you need to know is you need to go, okay, well, I don't know how to do status and I don't know how to load an image. So I don't know how to do this part. I don't know how to do the status part, and I don't know how to do the image of the book. So then maybe this tutorial doesn't teach you about any of that. So then you go to another tutorial where it actually focuses on how do I add an image to each blog post? And then it'll teach you where to put the code, how to put the code for the blog post image. And then you go, oh shit, that's my book image. Blog post image equals book post image. Same thing. Blog, book, same thing, right? It's just different attributes and entities in the database. And guys, don't overthink this. Like, don't overcomplicate this. A lot of the times, like, you're going to be, a lot of the times you're going to be like, well, I don't understand, like, look. If you don't understand, let's say this is all the knowledge that you need to do to build an app. All you need to do, okay, is you need to understand this part today. In fact, in order to understand this part right here, you cannot understand this today. So if you are thinking in your head, well, Dane, but I don't know how to blah, 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 blah. If it's not something that I've just talked about, I don't care about it. In order to accomplish this tutorial, you need to go step by step. So you need to learn, how do I build this today? Then tomorrow, how do I build this one? Then the next day, how do I build this one? Then the next day, how do I build this one? And when you think, like, what does that represent? What do these little dots represent? Maybe the very first day, you build the part where it's just this stuff, the blog post tutorial, the blog post title, and the blog post description, right? That's shown to you right here, the blog post description, the blog post title, right here. So then the next day you go, okay, perfect. I did one day. Next day, I'm going to learn how to do the image right here, this little image. So then the next day you do this one. Then the next day you go, I don't really know how to do a status, like this little status drop down. I don't know how to do that. Okay. Well, I'm going to learn how to do that from a tutorial that teaches me about drop downs, and then maybe that's advanced. So maybe you want to put that down here. Maybe you think the status is going to go down here. So I'm actually going to skip that. So you leave that red. Right? So you leave, like, guys, you're in control of this. You can leave this red for a while and wait until later to do something. Like, it's not that complicated. So now, after you've done this cycle of execution, this little cycle that I've taught you, now this blog post like list, this little module, you've built this entire module right here. And when I click on a book, I can see, or when I click on a book, I can see the detail page or the show view for that book. Do you see that? Next, we need to build this. Then we need to add login right here. But guys, that's easy. We'll cover that later. I want you to start thinking of apps and tutorials like this, When I'm building an app, I want to break it down using this type of system where I replace what it teaches me in the app with entities in my app, or what it teaches me in the tutorial with entities from my application, okay? Now let's break down this entities thing. This is the last piece that you need to know to be like a beginner at this. And then we'll go into more advanced parts of this later. So, entities. I'm going to try to keep my handwriting good. Entities. Okay, first of all, every application has entities. Now, the best metaphor is the car. I am not an artist, okay, so I'm going to totally fuck this up. Wheels, so there's a wheel there. There's wheel here, smaller wheel. Doop. And then let's say there's a cabin. Again, guys, I'm not an artist, so forgive me, but let's say there's a cabin. And then let's say you can't even see these wheels, right? So like, but these would be the wheels. You can't really see them, right? This is the windows, and then the back of the car. Okay, and then here's the wheel, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's erase these wheels here because that's kind of confusing you. So let's just leave it as, this is a side view of the car. Let's say there's a person in there, and you can't see more than their arm. So let's actually delete a little bit of that. Okay, there we go. So you can see their arm is hanging out, and then their body goes down, and they have a smile on their face. Or shit, whatever. I'm not an artist, right? So, and then there's like a panel here, and then a small panel here or something. Okay, so when you're building an application, it's the same way as building a car, right? There's all these entities. This is something that's absolutely critical to understand, is for a car, what are all the entities? So let's list them. 1, wheel. There's wheel objects, because wheel objects make up the ability for the car to travel. 2, there's an engine object. An engine can't exist, or for the car to travel, the engine has to exist, or the electric engine, whatever, the electric motor, whatever, blah, blah, blah. 3, the body, the exterior. You could name that, you could pick whatever you want to do to name that, right? Again, I'm terrible at spelling, so apologize if that's not right. So the exterior. Number 4, what about the glass? There's glass in the car, so et cetera, right? And there's all these different components that make up a car. The same for like an app, right? Like if this is your app right here. So let's say this is an event management app where I want to have a big list of events, top events in the United States for Python. I'm a Python guy, let's say. I'm not, but let's say I was. These are all the top Python. There's the big title. Here's the drop down where I could pick which month. And then it's going to show me all the top events, right? So for this, the logo, the login, I can add events to my profile, et cetera, say I want to go. So for this app, there's going to be a few different things, right? There's going to be 1, the event object. Number 2, the user object. And then the event object has different views. The list of events, that's what's right here. The show. When I click one of these, it takes me to the show or the detail view. Okay. And the user, obviously most apps are going to have a user object. Number 3, how can we make this more complicated? Right now, what I showed you here on the screen, you only need 2 objects. You need an event object and a user object. So it's actually kind of simple, right? It's not that complicated. So let's add something to this, right? What if like every event has reviews from an API? So when I click on an event, so like let's draw that. When I click on an event, it'll take me to a view where I can see the big title of the event, the big image of the event, and then it has a list from an API where I pull in external third-party reviews. Did people like it? These are all reviews, right? So these are reviews. So this is going to have a review object. Okay? Now this is going to be the list. And by the way, this is the list of reviews on an event. So list of reviews on an event. So, and then you can actually make associations between these objects. So an event has many reviews. And a review belongs to an event. And this is like a real clean, like, and by the way, this isn't the language and schema. This isn't the SQL language. Like, you're going to use different language to add it to the database. This is from Ruby on Rails. But this is just a great way to think about it. This helps me understand, okay, an event is associated to a review. An event has a bunch of reviews. And a review belongs to an event. And a review only has one event. So that's clean. That helps me understand this. And by the way, a user can go to many events. So has and belongs to, or no, we would actually, that's not good. We wouldn't want that one. We'd want just has many, probably. So a user has many events. And then the event has one. The event, so the user, there's many types of users, right? There's a user type attendee. This is all going to be the same table, right? There's a couple different ways to do it. So let's delete this little, Yep. So there's the type of an attendee, and then there's a user type admin, okay? So now let's use these terms right here, attendee and admin. So now we know that, so now we don't need to write this way because this is too basic. Now we can use these more advanced terms, the types of attendee or admin. So now we can say an attendee, I'm going to just abbreviate, has many events. So an attendee can go to many different events, but an event belongs to an admin. So an admin has to create the event, right? So the event belongs to an admin, right? So guys, this is like, if this is over your head, that's okay. Just try to understand the logic here. This is like, this is stuff that I was doing when I first started with no knowledge. Like, this is logic, okay? So I want you guys to not be overwhelmed by this. And when you see this, think to your head, how can I think about this logically? There's events. This is an event app that I want to build. Or if it's a movie app, there needs to be an entity of movie. And then there could be users, user type renter, user type admin, blah, 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 right? Like, so then you would Google how to build a type of user in Python Django, how to build a type of user in Ruby Rails. There's plenty of tutorials that teach you how to do this. This right here. You can use single table inheritance. You could use a simple column on the table that represents which way to present it. So there's a bunch of different approaches to do this, and there will be different tutorials to follow to do so. And you don't need to get complicated. Again, what you need to do is you need to zoom in and go, okay, right here, I need to learn types. So today I need to learn how to do a type of user. I'm going to Google it, whatever tutorial I find, that's what I'm going to do, period, done. I'm not going to complicate it. Maybe there's 6 ways to do that. I'm going to do the first one I find, done, don't care. Because the only thing that matters is that you move forward. Move forward, move forward, move forward, move forward. The only fucking thing that matters is that you move forward. Absolutely nothing else matters. All of this knowledge right here, this is freaking useless, meaningless knowledge unless you go step by step, because there's no way you're going to understand all of this shit at once. Does that make sense? So think in your head, car, next time you build an application, what are the entities? Now, again, when you hear different terminology, if you ever hear the words domain object or object or entity, these all mean the same thing. This is what I was talking about. These are all the same thing. These are the entities or objects in your app. So this is the event. In this case, this is the user. This is the review. This is the event. So these are called domain objects. Sometimes they're called entities. Sometimes just objects. You'll hear a lot of different phrases and verbs, and you'll hear a lot of different nouns used to describe this. It all means the same thing. Don't get complicated. And keep it simple. Like, notice that I could actually build this entire page. I could build this with just an event. I don't even need the user yet. I don't need anything but the event. All I need is this event right here, and I can build this. All I need is this event, and I got this. I can ignore this if I don't know how to do that. Maybe I'm like, okay, that's complicated, so I'm gonna do this later. I'm gonna ignore that. I'm gonna color it red, and I'm only gonna focus on the things that I know I can do. I know how to do this part. I know how to do the event, the list, because this is just like a list of blog posts, except it's a square. And instead of the title of the blog post, I'm gonna use the image. So blog post.image, instead I'm gonna be typing event.image, right? So it's the same thing. It's a list. And then I'm going to use CSS to actually make it go float left, float right. Obviously, nowadays in 2023, 2022, there's more ways to do this than float. So you know how to do add a little like static HTML. I mean, this is like, and by the way, in order to know how to start to do this, you have to actually do how to build a blank with Django tutorial. So you have to actually know, okay, how do I build, like, let me show you. You have to know how to put a little nav bar here that's static, and then you need to know how to make this entire page section dynamic. And you'll learn how to do that when you learn the framework tutorials. Okay, I want to learn to build a blog post with Ruby on Rails or a blog post with Django. It's going to teach you how to do this, how to make this part static and keep this part there, okay, using what's called templates. And that's real simple. You'll learn that real quick, and then you go about filling your very first template. This would be your very first template. Number 1, okay? This would be the event index view, template number 1, okay? And then you would do this one. This would be template number 2, the event show view. And so you would Google or use that tutorial to determine how to build these different ones. And then like feel a sense of accomplishment. When you complete this section here, you should literally be like, bro, I'm actually accomplishing something, and I've crossed off a section on the calendar, and I'm feeling like I'm moving forward. All you need to do is move forward. Okay, you don't need to be perfect about it. This is how I've taught students to break down app ideas for the past 5 years, and this is very successful. This method works. If you have any questions on this, comment below. I'm happy to answer questions. If this was helpful, leave a like or subscription. Leave a like, particularly if this was helpful. That helps me understand to do more tutorials like this. All right, guys, that's it. Talk to you soon.